Um, this is Peggy Childers. My real name is Margaret Ann Windsor, and I was kidnapped and brought here in 41 by Joseph Kennedy, the grandfather of Caroline Kennedy, who's up for an ambassadorship. He helped my Uncle George VI, that's Elizabeth's dad, and they are an illegal lineage. They're not the real monarchs. And Roosevelt, president back then, and the Bilderbergers, Rothschilds, and Rockefellers, who are the New World Order, as Elizabeth is. But they kidnapped me in 41 and brought me to Moulton, Alabama, and gave me the name of Peggy and Dempsey Childers, the married name. I'm going to skip all the other. I put it on video. I don't know if these videos are really being seen or not. I tried, as I have since 72, to tell about mind control murders and all of that and what has happened to me. I'm going to skip to, I came to Roanoke, Virginia, October of 86. And my jobs were shut down. Couldn't get a place to live. I mean, really shut down. I resorted to the Appalachian Trail and the Jefferson National Forest as a place to live. At first, I didn't even have a sleeping bag, tent, anything. So I froze for the first couple of years, and people all around me knew. They said that they were told not to help me, and they didn't. So I told about John Kennedy coming up. His grandfather was the one that helped kidnap me. He came up, it was 93, I think, in the spring of the old trail up to Philhart Knob Shelter in Troutville. And he, quote, him and his buddy he ran around with, quote, had put on backpacks just for the special occasion and bought a ticket from, I guess, Boston, where they were, anyway, just to Roanoke to walk up 1.5 miles, and I quote him, I just wanted to see how you were living. Well, anybody who's known how I'm living could have had a lot of options to help me. Instead, they did what the law enforcement told them to, and they didn't care for me. They just wanted me shut down. The kidnapping of me and what was done to me in the British right in plain sight is not a good story to tell the world because everybody got in on it, it seems. But I'm going to skip now to, and of course, John's plane went down in July the 16th of 99, which is, I would say it was mind control that was used to take it down. They used the twins. His wife was a twin, Caroline, and the date, and the fact that his whole family was involved in the fiasco that's been done against me and my father and my country. So one way to hurt you is to control your residence or lack of residence. And remember, I was supposed to live in Buckingham Palace and was brought here and made the biggest pauper ever walked or crawled. So I'm going to skip to Terry Sawyer, and I bet this one gets clipped again. I've tried two, and it gets shut down. I met him on the Appalachian Trail, and over the years I thought he was a friend, and I highly doubt it now. I don't have any. I really don't have anybody to reach out to. Anyway, the first place I lived when I found out that I could live in a HUD, low income, but some of those are nice, so I'm not complaining. Well, maybe I am too. I shouldn't be having to. But Edinburgh, and that's associated with the name Edinburgh, with Edinburgh, Scotland, and the castle and all that. Anyway, I lived there, Section 8 HUD, in '06, and was so glad to get it. And there was a little studio, and lo and behold, the woman who is over HUD here is from a wealthy family here. Clutter Lake was named after her. Her HUD, she's over Section 8, and she allowed this all to happen to me. She had to okay it. Her husband, when I got there, Pauper, was head of maintenance there. And what can I say? They gassed me with industrial, you name it, till I'm a walking zombie. I'm allergic to chemicals, and my immune system shuts down. and my liver, my kidneys, you name it, had been so damaged in the lungs over the years. Okay, I stayed there as long as I could, and I had to break the lease. And I always paid my rent, never behind, never. I even tried to pay it ahead of time. So the next one I had, and I'm leaving out the in-betweens and being thrown back into the forest and the rangers coming and, quote, the nice little word, they shooed me away. Well, that's not all they did. But anyway, the next one I had, Section 8, was Richfield in Salem. And it was, even their Section 8 was nice. I really, it tried so hard. I sucked in chemicals. And by the way, Terry Sawyer took me there. And he showed me where he's with law enforcement. So I left there. And anyway, the next one that had to do with HUD or Section 8, which is federally funded, and this is how the feds or law enforcement can go around and misuse it. And they really used it to torture me, my lack of housing, and if I didn't get it, they'd lock me up and call me nuts. If I went to the forest, they came out there and run me. And people used to laugh. They found it funny and said, well, you're running from the law, aren't you? So at the last one I lived at HUD was Joseph's Way in Bedford, Virginia. And it's owned by Reverend Moore out of Washington, North Carolina, a black minister. He owns a whole slew of these. I don't know really how many, 20, 25 at least, I would think. And they're relatively nice, but they allow the federal government to come in because they fund part of it. That doesn't make it okay. If this was done to anybody else other than me, they'd be locked up. But anyway, and he was very aware of what went on. While I was there, it was backed up. I could look out my window to Bedford Memorial, and that's Tom Hanks thinks it's so great. Well, they got the British flag flying up there side by side with the American flag, and you know everybody around here, seriously, it knows exactly about me and what's happened. And do you find that funny that they put me there to look up at the American flag and the British flag and who I am, and I'm having to look at it? I'm the actual monarch, not Elizabeth. She works for the American government. So they've all found funny the situation created for me. But anyway, while I was there, I went on the July the 1st of 11, and managed to stay there, and I really suffered, and it took me out for 7 months. But I'm going to lose it here in a minute trying to put it together. They need to take, I'm naming names because anybody could, if they cared, who you going to get to go back and check it all out? The FBI? Anyway, Brenda Ellis was the manager's name there, and you can't believe what people will do when they think they can get away with it. I went there on July the 1st of 11, and the minute I walked in the door, the air conditioning went down. Well, it's the 4th of July, and they're shooting off fireworks up there at the Bedford Memorial, and it was kind of chaotic, me being British and me sitting there and listening to all this God bless America and the things that are being done to me. Well, the air conditioning went out and the fumes started coming through. Why? You must be nuts. The Americans wouldn't do that to you. Why? You start telling it and nobody wants to hear it. You really don't have a chance to tell it. I fear they'll lock me up again. But anyway, right away the sprung a leak in where the air conditioning is housed, and this is all new. Nobody's lived there. And they tear it down because it's got mold and mildew coming out of it, really bad. Well, they won't fix it. It was like this joke. So they put my few little things I'd put back together on the back of an old truck that they brought from another unit. It's like this joke. They threw it on this old rickety truck. My furniture, what there was, is piled, and this is a joke. They break part of it, and they take it up to another new one And lo and behold, it was worse than the first. Without getting into it, I'll say that toward the end, I left there in February of 12, the end of February, the 28th, and they brought in a Navy SEAL that was retired. And what they did with it, they put out a bulletin there at Joseph's Way Apartments, and how nice it was to have him, such an honorable man in all this. When they've treated me and the things they've lied and said about me, and I'll tell you this, a Brit told me, he said, they've all lied about you. And in other words, one gentleman, when I first came here, British, says they framed you. And they did one heck of a job right in plain sight of all of them, the people. But back to that, I ended up having to leave there. I was so sick. I called back over to Roanoke, and I called Affordable Corporate Suites, which they've done the same thing to me. They've got about 4 units here in Roanoke, and this man's wealthy. He's Jewish. And he's got a bunch of them over the state and out of state. But anyway, Roberta was a black woman, and she was over the corporate suite at Lakeside. And she said, I promise you, if you come over here, my brother is a policeman at Bedford, or a detective at Bedford Police Department, and you'll be okay back here. Well, I came back over to Roanoke, and believe me, I wasn't okay. Everyone should follow what happened to me and the abuse that I have suffered. I had managed to save a few bucks by not eating what other people eat. I didn't buy any clothes or anything to have an emergency fund. Well, it didn't take long to take out every penny I had because I started having to move again and again from being gassed and fumed to death. And Sawyer was one that took me there. I can't get anyone to help. I call the people that are supposed to help is put me into begging. I'm a beggar, a pauper, a beggar, and nobody will touch it. I mean, they really hate me. I didn't commit a crime. I was born. The crimes were committed against me, but I'm paying for their crimes against me. So that's I can't get legal aid. I can't get squat except hurt and fumes to suck in. And where do you go when the police or law enforcement is a part of it? So I'm going to go back to Larry Flint, who was shot and had me out to his home when I ran in a political campaign in '83, October. The last time I was out, he invited me out, and I went through his house, and I'd been there before and had no problem. I mean, I had a house in the lily pad room, and a room in his house in the lily pad room. Well, this time I was flown out on election day, October, and the 16th, and picked up. And when I got there that night, well, I was pushing him around in the wheelchair, and he was saying there's no room here. It was full. Well, he finally found a room for me, and I spent the night, and I'm sent back to Atlanta. I was living in Marietta, Georgia, and he furnished me a car, and I've never seen him since. Or they did, in Hustler of April of '84, they endorsed me, and he said in that endorsement that I had been made a pauper, and that I knew who was responsible for his shooting, and I did. The person had been programmed to shoot him, and they killed his attorney. And by the way, because a lot of this is done in patterns, the day that movie of, what was that? It was Jerry Falwell, the parody thing, that he was suing Larry Flint. By the way, I'm going to go ahead and say this. Larry Flint would be an angel up against Jerry Falwell. People look at Larry Flint, and I don't like pornography, but by goodness, he paid a price for telling the truth about this government. They put him in Butner, North Carolina, where the serial killers have been stuck, who, by the way, must have been programmed, and the psychiatrist that sent them there don't want you to hear it. And I'm going to quit because I'm a long time, and it's going to stop, and I guess that's enough there. Anyway, you all can get the drift. You can download. I told about programming and all this back in the early 70s. Now I find that you can download about MK Ultra and Monarch Mind Control and all of this, and listen to Art Bell and Coast to Coast.